So, I'm not a huge fan of the Pokémon franchise. I'm a very casual Pokémon trainer. The only games in the series that I've gotten into were Pokémon Red, Yellow, Crystal, and the more recent Ultra Moon. I'd say that I'm more of a fan of the original anime, like most people my age. I remember really enjoying Red version back in the day, but I wanted something that followed the anime a little more closely, and I got that with Yellow version. I really liked Yellow because it made me feel like I was going on more of a journey with my Pokemon, having Pikachu follow me around everywhere, and of course it being a basic retelling of that anime that I liked so much. A few months ago, Nintendo dropped a trailer for its very first traditional Pokémon console game, Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. The trailer was kinda confusing, presenting what seemed like a more stripped-down Pokémon experience, where catching wild Pokémon was the main gameplay element instead of battling. This left a lot of people with the idea that traditional Pokémon battles would be greatly simplified in this title, making the game seem more like a big-budget expansion to the mobile app Pokémon Go. We also got word that the game's story would be a retelling of Yellow version, the entry that I really liked. Knowing this, I still didn't really pay attention to the rest of the trailers and news that came out after that initial announcement, but I was still a little curious about this game. Now that it's out and I've played through it, I can say that I was very surprised with this title. I really wanted to talk about it and let you guys know if it's worth your time and money. So yeah, let's see what this modern-day remake of Pokémon Yellow has to offer. Pokémon Let's Go is one of the most wholesome and pleasant nostalgia trips I've ever taken. This game is in fact a remake of Yellow and features the same world that we played through back in the classic Pokémon games, the Kanto region. The game starts just like before, with you choosing a character, naming your rival, and starting your journey in Pallet Town. Shortly after meeting up with your friendly rival and Professor Oak, you run into either a wild Pikachu or Eevee depending on which game you bought. Once you catch this Pokemon, you return to the professor's lab and that's where it becomes your starter. In my case, I got Pikachu and my rival got Eevee. Just like Pokemon Yellow. It's the very standard Pokemon game setup that we're used to at this point. As you leave town and start your adventure, you'll quickly realize that wild Pokemon no longer need to be battled in order to be catched and added to your party. This time, you just throw Pokeballs at them until they're caught. Okay, it's not that simple. I mean, it kinda is, but there's a little more to it. Like the mobile app Pokémon Go, once encountered, wild Pokémon will have an outer ring over them and an inner ring shrinking constantly. Throwing a Pokeball at the inner ring while it's very small will improve your chances of catching the Pokemon and give you a bonus once caught. At the beginning of the game, lower level Pokemon will just sort of stand there waiting to be caught, but later on you'll be finding ones that move around, making your throws a lot harder to land. This was my biggest problem with the game's catching mechanic at first. This title has a variety of control types, but most of them require you to use motion controls to throw your Pokeball via Joy-Con, or this game's unique Pokeball Plus accessory. You can't use a Pro Controller, which is really dumb for a reason I'll talk about in a bit. Landing a throw is very easy if a Pokemon is standing right in front of you, but once they move side to side, it's really hard to actually throw the Pokeball anywhere that's not in front of you. The game never teaches you how to throw your ball off to the side, so for most of this game I was just waiting for the Pokemon to center themselves so I could easily throw my ball at them, because I literally didn't know how to do a side throw. It was frustrating, but eventually I figured out how to do it because my friend told me. This is a problem because the tutorial only tells you to wave your Joy-Con to throw your ball, not to hold it slightly off center and then flick your wrist left or right to do a side throw, which still doesn't work 100% of the time, by the way. The dumbest thing is that when you play this game in handheld mode, it works perfectly because you can move the in-game camera by physically moving the console around, making it easier to track a Pokemon's movement. You also use the face buttons to throw out your ball. Why can't we also move the camera using the Joy-Con's movement stick or use the Pro Controller? Having these docked control options for people who don't understand the throwing mechanic at first would have been great. I know I'm being hard on this feature, but it was really frustrating at first, okay? Aside from being kind of finicky, catching also has some depth to it. The shrinking inner ring will display in different colors depending on the difficulty of the Pokemon. You can make catches easier by using different types of berries you can feed wild Pokemon that vary in effect. Berries will either calm a Pokemon down or stop them from moving around. Also, you still get different types of Pokeballs like the Great, Ultra, Premier, and Master Ball that also make catching a little easier. If you catch a certain type of Pokemon over and over again, you'll achieve a catch combo that'll give you more experience points and increase the likelihood of encountering a rare, shiny version of that Pokemon. I tried doing this for a little while with Drowsies, and I ended up catching 16 Drowsies in a row. I didn't find any shiny versions, so I think you really have to spend like an hour doing this, which I didn't want to do. I mentioned this earlier in the video. This game launched with its own unique controller, the Pokeball Plus. This thing is really cute. It's shaped like a Pokeball and has a movement stick which you can press in as the confirm button, and there's also a button on top which acts like the cancel and menu buttons. Shaking the controller opens more advanced menu options too. It's kinda complicated in comparison to the standard Joy-Con where you just use the face buttons to make your selections. And pressing that movement stick down repeatedly started to hurt my thumb after a while. Although I really like this accessory, I wouldn't say that it's worth it really. I got mine because it came bundled with the version of the game that I bought, but I think you'll be fine if you just want to stick to the standard Joy-Con. Also, what am I supposed to do with this thing when I finish playing this game? I guess it'll just sit there next to my PlayStation Move controller for the rest of time. The Pokeball Plus also just gives you Mew, so I started my game with Mew. Pretty crazy, right? Just take the rarest Pokemon right at the beginning. Okay, I guess. That might be another reason not to buy this accessory, because you may actually want to find Mew out in the wild instead of it just being given to you at the start. Oh yeah, one more thing about catching. I really like how you can see the Pokemon roaming around in the field before you start the catching minigame. It gives you a chance to avoid certain Pokemon, and you get to see which ones are in a particular area as you explore. I hope they keep this for future games in the series. It's really cool. Overall, I really liked the catching in this game once I figured out how to do it properly. It's a little wonky at first, but it does its job and serves as a nice refresh to all the battling you'll be doing. That's right, this game has a lot of Pokemon battles. As you make your way through Kanto's routes and caves, you'll be encountering a lot of Pokemon trainers. They pretty much take over for random encounters in this game. The battles play out like Pokemon battles should, using a turn-based JRPG style. You level up and evolve your Pokemon, learning new skills, finding TMs, and earning gym badges from each of the city's gym leaders with the goal of eventually taking on the Pokemon League. Each of the Pokemon have their own battle animations, and they all look really good. This game has amazing graphics overall. The battle animations kind of lose their flair after you've seen them like 20 times, and you do have the option to turn them off, making the battles flow a lot faster. From a difficulty perspective, it's interesting because most Pokemon games usually start out easy and the challenge escalates as you progress through the story around the halfway point. But in this title, I noticed that the entire game is very easy. Most of the battles that I played through, I pretty much used Pikachu's learned skill, Zippy Zap, to wreck everything in my path with almost one hit. It's pretty crazy. One of the only real challenges I found in this game was the final member of the Elite Four, and that's partially because I didn't start this battle with Pikachu just zippy zapping everything. In a lot of the game's areas, I actually didn't use Pikachu in order to raise the game's challenge a bit. This helped out, but I still found using the correct elements for specific Pokemon still saw me blasting right through pretty much all of the trainers I came across. Honestly, I found a lot of the cave and dungeon encounters to be kind of boring because they'd throw these trainers at me that would have like 3 of the same Pokemon that I would easily dispatch without breaking a sweat. It was in these battles where I realized what was going on in this game. Pokemon Let's Go is clearly for people who've never played a Pokemon game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but for those of us who already know what elements beat which Pokemon, it could get really repetitive to battle the same things 3 times in a row. Maybe having like a true Pokemon Master difficulty mode to increase the battle challenge would have been a nice addition for returning players. Even though repetitive stuff can happen, it's not really this particular game's fault because most JRPGs suffer from having similar battles over and over again. I guess it just comes with the territory. Thankfully, I found the game to be very well paced because by the time I started getting sick of crawling around in a cave doing the same things again and again, I'd always find myself right at the exit where I could refresh with some nice Pokemon catching. It's not a terrible combat system, but it definitely feels like it's aiming for newcomers to the series. This game also has co-op play, and it's really fun. All another player has to do is pick up a Joy-Con and shake it. Another trainer will drop down from the sky, joining you on your adventure. In co-op play, the second player will use another Pokemon that's already in your party. Battles play out as a double battle, making the already easy combat system that much easier. 2-on-1. So not fair for whoever you're up against. Pokemon catching is also easier because now both players can throw out 2 Pokeballs, and if the throws successfully land at the same time, the Pokeballs combine in this over-the-top animation that makes it very hard for a Pokemon to break out of. It's not a guaranteed catch, especially if you're in the late game, but it's still very reliable. I actually played through the beginning hours of this game with my friend on her Switch doing co-op, and it made the first few cities go by so fast. We were getting through this game at a breakneck speed. It was crazy. Co-op is really fun, but it definitely sucks a lot of the challenge out of the starting areas. Maybe you should save co-op for later in the game or for a second playthrough. Thankfully, HMs have been replaced with secret techniques. These techniques are familiar abilities that your starter Pokémon learns throughout the course of the game. Abilities like Chop Down help you bypass small trees blocking your path, like the Cut HM did back in the day. Your starter will also learn techniques like Sea Skim, which is basically Surf, and Strong Push, which replaces the Strength HM, allowing you to push heavy objects in the environment. It's a convenient change, but also a strange one. Like seeing Pikachu or Eevee literally learning how to ride a surfboard is just really silly. It's cool, but it's silly. Bikes have also been removed from this game and replaced with the far superior ability of being able to ride on the bigger Pokémon. Who needs a bike when you could just fly across the countryside on the back of a Charizard? Or how about blazing across a field on Rapidash? Getting across the Kanto region has never been this much fun. This feature is really awesome and, depending on the Pokémon, very badass. Just imagine rolling up to a gym on top of an Onix. It doesn't get any cooler than that. Riding on the backs of these Pokémon coincides with the new feature of letting certain Pokémon follow you around. All 151 Pokémon in this game have a walking animation. This in itself is really fun to experience. Whenever I caught a new Pokémon, I'd let them out of their Pokéball just to see how they moved around the environment. It's also good because Pokémon that follow you around also find helpful items hidden around the world. Overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay of Pokémon Let's Go. It's a simpler version of a bunch of gameplay systems that a lot of us are used to, with some cool twists and additions that I feel breathe some new life into this series of games. Now that I've talked about the gameplay, it's time to take a short trip down memory lane. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, this game is a very wholesome and pleasant nostalgia trip from beginning to end. Every route, town, and city has been lovingly recreated with glorious Nintendo Switch graphics, and it all looks very beautiful. All of your favorite characters and gym leaders are back, and their gyms look awesome too. I really like Misty's gym. It has a very Mario Sunshine feel to it. Locations like Lavender Town, Team Rocket's hideout, and Victory Road are some of my favorites and were so cool to see remade in these graphics. I really liked Victory Road the most because it gave me a real Twilight Princess Temple of Time vibe, making the trek to the Elite Four feel like a grand journey finally coming to a close. I had tears in my eyes while watching Cubone's depressing story play out in Pokemon Tower. Poor little buddy. I also gasped very loudly when I first saw Team Rocket in these graphics. Their battle intro is straight out of a 70s anime. It's just so awesome. Oh, and all of the music from the classic Pokemon era has been remade and it all sounds great. I literally whistled along to every song that played in this game, like I was back playing Yellow version as a kid again. There aren't many cutscenes in the game, but when they happen, you can really tell that a lot of time and care went into them because of how nice they look. The SS Anne cutscene stands out in particular. The last thing I wanted to talk about is something a lot of people are angry with: the whole friendly rival character in this game. At first I didn't really see the problem with it, but as the game goes on, your rival turns out to be kind of a pushover, just letting you take all of the glory for certain story events, and that's pretty lame to see. It's weird too because the original Pokemon game rival, Blue aka Gary Oak from the anime, is also in this game, and he's very cheeky. Every time he showed up I was like, hey, why aren't you my rival? It's important to have a rival that genuinely dislikes you and makes you want to overcome them, rather than just politely letting you do things better than them. There's this part in particular that I feel would have been better if your rival hated you. Team Rocket has taken over a building, and it's up to you and your rival to stop them. There's a double battle that you have to do with your rival, and he's just like, yeah, let's beat him together. I feel like it would have been way better if your rival hated you and was like, I'll put my hatred for you aside now because Team Rocket is the real problem. And the visual of this guy that dislikes you helping you take down a bigger enemy would be way cooler than just your friend helping you out. That's just my take on this character. I do agree that the concept of a friendly rival is pretty lame, but a true rival would kind of go against this game's super pleasant vibe. It was really smart for Game Freak and Nintendo to make this game a remake of Yellow. I don't think I would have played it all the way through if it wasn't for the nostalgia factor driving me forward. Like we've discussed, the catching mechanic is really fun, but the combat system is definitely lacking in depth. And if these systems were framed by a new Pokemon story, I probably wouldn't have paid any attention to this game. This brings us to the big question: is this game worth it? Well, it depends really. I look at this title as more of a tech demo for what Game Freak can possibly do with these systems in the next mainline Pokemon game. If you're looking for a relaxing and well-polished trip down memory lane that you don't have to think too hard about, then yeah, pick this game up, you'll probably like it. If you're a hardcore fan looking for the next big Pokemon experience, then you probably won't find what you're looking for with Let's Go. If you're somewhere in between those two mindsets, then maybe wait for the game to drop in price. Once again, it is a very simplified Pokemon game, clearly appealing to newcomers of the series and fans of Pokemon Go. I hope this video helped you in better understanding the game's systems and ultimately helped in deciding on a potential purchase. After playing this game, I would be lying if I said it didn't get me more excited about the idea of a true Pokemon console game. But for now, I personally think Pokémon Let's Go is a really fun game that shows us what's possible for this series going forward. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I talk about a lot of dark and spooky games on this channel, and I really just needed a colorful refresh with talking about this Pokemon game. If you're new to my channel, I don't really cover Pokemon, but I do occasionally cover a JRPG here and there. I mostly focus on survival horror games, and if that interests you, please consider subscribing. Also, if you like my content and want to support me further, please check out my Patreon page down in the description. I offer a bunch of cool things there as rewards, like previews and my exclusive Patreon-only show, Inside the Sphere. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you're playing Pokemon Go, I hope you're having a good time with it. It's really fun and really cute. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Later!